fans? Welcome back to Room 237, back with another kind of random review. As you know, here and there, I pick away at 80 slasher films. I've done just over 100 at this point. And this is another movie that I picked up just the other day when I picked up a handful of movies. I saw this one. I didn't even know that there was a DVD release of this, at least not by itself. I know it was released through Scream Factory as a double feature with another film. But I had heard of it. I knew it was an 80s slasher. Had never really read a synopsis or seen a trailer or knew anything about it. So when I found it, especially for like $5, I was like, awesome. I'm definitely going to pick this up. And this is a bootleg in the way, like, it was put out by Cheesy Movies, which I know I have one or two other releases by them, but a bootleg in the sense that, you know, you can probably find it online or in some stores. It has decent packaging, but it's 1988's Destroyer. And yeah, I think for the longest time, by itself at least, this was only on VHS. And yeah, for a bootleg, I mean, pretty decent looking, and it's a good transfer for the VHS. It looks and sounds great. I did not know that this has Anthony Perkins in it, so that was another selling point for me, on top of knowing it was an 80s slasher. Love Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates himself. Which, the double feature that you can get this with through Scream Factory is with a 1989 slasher film called Edge of Sanity that also has Anthony Perkins. Now, this was directed by Robert Kirk, and it was written by Peter Garrity, Rex Hawk, and there's actually two other writers credited on Wikipedia, which Peter Garrity and Rex Hawk would also be the producers, but also written by Mark W. Rosenbaum, so I guess one other writer. If I pronounce this correctly, Chai Elizondo did the cinematography. It was also edited by Mark W. Rosenbaum. Music by Patrick O'Hearn, who's... He did do a whole lot of movies. I think he did a small handful after this one, not necessarily horror related. And it only gives me 4 cast members. Lyle Elzaldo, who plays our killer. Probably more famous for being a football player. Can't remember the team because I never watched football. But he was also one of the construction workers, or like the bully construction worker on Ernest Goes to Camp. Clayton Rohner, who was kind of the hipster looking guy in April Fool's Day. Deborah Foreman, who did look familiar. She was also in April Fool's Day. She was also in Waxwork. I think Waxwork 2. Nope, just Waxwork. Grizzly 2 Revenge, which came out in 2021. And a bunch of other ones. Oh, I guess there was a Grizzly 2 Revenge in 83 as well. So, yeah, she's been in some things. And, of course, Anthony Perkins, the great Anthony Perkins. Which I guess originally that role was going to go to Roddy McDowall, who I'm also a huge fan of. I think both would have been awesome, but, you know, it is great to see Anthony Perkins in anything. And it must have been at the last minute, because I would have figured a slasher film having Anthony Perkins in it, there would have been a ton of Psycho references. There was really only one that really jumped out to me, and it seemed like more incidental than anything. And that's when the killer's looking through a peephole into when the film crew is shooting a shower scene. That alone is like a reference to Psycho. But if I'm not mistaken, he's making sounds, if you know what I mean, which would be more of a reference to Gus Van Sant's Psycho, which came out 10 years later. Now, when I first read the back of this, I thought, so it's basically Shocker, which, I mean, even the cover kind of makes him look like it might be a little like Shocker, like he's covered in electricity. In that you have this convicted serial killer who goes to the electric chair. It doesn't kill him, and he then goes on a killing spree. That's really the only similarity to Shocker. I think Shocker would come out the following year. I always forget if it's 88 or 89. I'm pretty sure it's 89. But this came out at a time when the slasher genre had long since peaked and gone down. At this point, it was even past the trend of, or phase of it being self-referential and self-parody after it peaked. And by 88, you really only had the major franchises continuing. Like you had Friday the 13th 7, I think Elm Street 4 was 88. It was the same year the first Child's Play came out. The first Hellraiser, at least, was out at that time. I mean, you had lesser known ones. Like, I'm pretty sure 88 was Maniac Cop, which I would say Maniac Cop is a much better movie than this, but it is kind of in the same wheelhouse in that it is more actiony, it is more fun, more comedic. But yeah, I would say that a Maniac Cop is a much better movie. And then other ones like Hide and Go Shriek, or I think Cheerleader Camp was closer to this time. Hell High. And they were all very, very low budget. This is very low budget. But also within horror, there was kind of a trend with prison horror films. Like I think the year before this, there was one called Prison. Then there was this. Of course, you had Shocker the following year. I guess it wasn't too big of a trend, but it was something that lasted a couple years. And yeah, I could say it was fun for what it was. It did feel like it dragged at some points. It is kind of one of those slashers where we focus on everything but the killer throughout most of the film. I think we get like 2 kills, really, on screen before, you know, our lead figures out what's going on, and it's the chase between the lead and the killer. And then I think we get like 1 or 2 more deaths, and then the rest are all off screen. We just see her kind of running into the aftermath. But yeah, it opens up on, it's the night of the execution of Ivan Moser, played by, I forget, Lyle Alzado. You have to forgive me. I've had a throbbing headache all day, so please bear with me through this. And he's convicted of the rape, torture, and murder of 23 people, though he boasts during his execution that's actually 24, including this one TV hostess, game show hostess, that he even has them turn the TV around in like the witness booth so he can watch it as they prep him for execution. Clayton Rohner from April Fool's Day. He's a priest in this scene, giving him his final rites. And yeah, he's like, Alzado's like wild-eyed and kind of like doing this attempt at insanity laugh and boasting. And just as the power goes all the way up to electrocute him, the power goes out. And I don't even remember if we see the riot or if that's just something we find out later. But then uh, Deborah Foreman wakes up as if it was a dream. Because Clayton Rohner is actually her boyfriend. And she was... It is what happened, but it plays it off like it's a dream she had. Susan Malone. Okay, that's... They kept calling her Malone, even Clayton Rohner, whose name is David Harris. They're dating, but they call each other by the last name. So Susan is a stunt woman or a stunt double, and David Harris is, I think he's both writer and special effects for this film that they're shooting 18 months after the failed execution of Ivan Moser at this jail, which is a movie called Death House Dollies. And it's kind of a parody of exploitation films. I mean, they're really making fun of the bad acting, and there is some fun, jokey dialogue. Like when they do the shower scene, Anthony Perkins, who's the director, says like, it's a horror movie in the 80s. We gotta have nudity. So it is kind of poking fun at its own genre, which I appreciated. Oh, I guess this movie's also known as Shadow of Death. I forgot to mention that earlier, just because I see it here. And it doesn't tell me what the budget for this was. I would have liked to know. But yeah, we get the idea that David is not really obsessed, but intrigued by the history of this prison. He knows that there was a failed execution, then a riot broke out, a bunch of people escaped, and hell broke loose. The warden shows up at one point, gives him shit for even talking about it. The only person that's left would be the janitor of the prison, who eventually they give a role of security guard for the film. And yeah, a lot of the scenes in the prison is like Anthony Perkins trying to get his lead actress to act properly. She's like this terrible actress, prima donna. His lighting effects guy is a moron who keeps screwing up everything. And a lot of times it does play off like a slasher where like we just see the feet and hands of the killer even though we know it's Ivan. But like the warden goes into a bathroom stall to shit. The killer brings in a acetylene torch, and like it's funny because I think it's implied that he welds the stall door shut even though it's a wooden bathroom stall, and then makes the flame bigger and burns the warden alive. And there's really not a whole lot to say about it for like the first hour or so. It's pretty much just like the banter and them trying to make this movie. There is some jokes, like there's this dummy that David got made up to look like the horrible lead actress. And like they walk by Russell with it, and he's like, "Does that got tits and everything?" They're like, yeah, it does. And then they go into this office where David's younger coworker is putting his face on the photocopier, making copies of himself, which we do see a POV of the copier. Which anytime you see a slasher film and there's like some sort of unique camera angle where something's being used, you know that's going to foreshadow a kill in some way. And it does. And then his younger co-worker's like, wow, it looks just like Miss Fox. It's got tits and everything. And there's some sillier moments, like the lighting guy who can't get any effects right. He's in one room where he's got all the things that are electrical live, and he's playing some stupid song like Kiss My Dirty Wide Ass or something. So it's a very silly, goofy film. The music is very 80s. It's a mix of like what you think a late 80s synth score would be, but it has some John Carpenter moments too, like just like slow drum beats or like build up type music. There's even one where Ivan is chasing down the lead actress, and the score almost sounds like someone vocalizing like a dog bark. Like, it goes with the music, like this, oh, oh. It actually sounds kind of cool. But yeah, this one cop shows up at one point to look for the warden. Russell is like, oh, well, I think I know where he is. Let's go find him. And this is when you get the idea that the warden's, that Russell's in on it, because while Ivan is just throwing this cop around, and then takes a jackhammer to him. Again, it's not like this. It's just a regular jackhammer. It's not even that bloody or messy for the kind of kill it is. Like, he just kind of puts it up to him. Russell's on the other side of the wall, kind of just like laughing and listening, kind of like a kid. And the jackhammer comes through the wall, and he like touches it, and blood flies all over Ivan. The lead actress quits at one point because they want to shoot her execution scene, and they do have the electric chair hooked up with a little bit of electricity, and they give her a shock without telling her, so they can actually get a decent reaction out of her. So she gets pissed and quits, and then she's off getting drunk. She looks at old pictures of herself with like a Miss Whatever sash. She ends up finding Ivan, and at first Russell starts to like strangle her with the sash. Oh, because the power goes out, and the crew gets stuck in a cell. But yeah, eventually, and she like throws Russell off a railing, but then Ivan just strangles her with the sash. And I'm not sure if I've seen... I don't know if Psycho 2, 3, and 4 has Perkins dropping an F-bomb, but he does a couple times in this, and it is pretty funny. Like, he's trying to get this actress to do well. He calls cut, but she just keeps going, and he's like, Cecil B. the fucking mill cut. It just sounds funny. And then eventually it's just Deborah Foreman trying to get the power back on. She's walking around with the walkie-talkie to the lights guy trying to get the power back on. She finds... there's this subplot where she keeps finding this baby doll in a note that says, like, I've been very lonely, soon it'll just be us. Or another time it's, soon we'll be alone now, only us. She keeps finding that, and I think she finds the last one written in blood. So that's when she knows something's up. And, the Ivan kills the light guy right after she talks to him. Of course, off screen. And Ivan takes the cop's clothes, and this movie does do a good job at showing just how big this guy is. And how, like, the cop was like an average sized guy, but he's wearing the cop's clothes, and I don't think they would fit in real life. So she starts running around the prison, runs into all the dead bodies. Like, the light guy is, like, hanged somehow. She goes in that office with the photocopier. There's the kid's severed head in the photocopier with bloody prints coming off, which I thought those looked cool. So a lot of the bloodier kills are off screen. She goes back to the cell where the electric chair is, and he had already strapped Anthony Perkins to it. And it's a decent practical effect, but it does look very silly, and you can tell it's not Anthony Perkins. where the power kicks back on, and she's trying to turn it off instead of undoing the straps. And so like when it shows him, like you can tell it's another person, barely even looks like Perkins, but like it looks like, you know, blood's coming out of some areas and his eyes explode. Decent practical effect, but yeah, you can definitely tell. What really makes it look fake is that it doesn't look like Perkins at all. Yeah, a lot of the acting is very silly, especially from Elzado, but Perkins is always a charm. I mean, he he's always reminded me, especially this late in his career, and I'm not sure if this is before or after he was initially diagnosed with AIDS, because I know it was around this time. It was around the time of Psycho 4. But even after he was I think after he was diagnosed, he did Psycho 4. And just like after Peter Cushing's wife died, I mean, they always bring total class to their performances, always believable. Even if it's a classless role, like Perkins' director in this one, he plays it with so much conviction. He's always great to watch. He does remind me of like an American Peter Cushing or something, just with how much conviction and commitment he brings to even the silliest of roles. I love watching Anthony Perkins. And yeah, David's at this one diner talking to this one chef who was actually the executioner of Ivan Moser. And he tells him the real story. And he tells him that it left Ivan half alive and that Russell is his daddy. That's why he's kind of protecting him. Now, Wikipedia says that there's some sort, I must have missed this, but it says, quote, they discovered that Moser survived his electrocution due to an unusual genetic gift. I think I missed that. And the jolt of electrical energy made him half alive, which I remember the chef saying that, leaving him in a feral state and granting him spontaneous regeneration. A feral state, he seemed just as, you know, whatever as in the very beginning of the film, with the wide eyes, the insane laugh. I mean, he's still able to set traps, trick people, talk. He still talks just fine. So I don't know if feral really makes sense. And I don't really remember him rejuvenating himself in any way. But there is a chase between him and Deborah Foreman. At one point, he does get her, and he's got her handcuffed in this one chair, and he like cuts her hair, then eats it in front of her, and then like licks her face, which I don't think was scripted because her reaction seemed very natural. But another thing that was foreshadowed, just like the photocopier, says she's a stunt woman. She's trying to figure out this pair of trick handcuffs that she's supposed to break out of in one scene. Those are the ones that Ivan used on her, so she's able to break free. She does something to him, then runs away. David catches up to her, and David gets his ass kicked. I mean, he doesn't get killed. It's actually kind of different because the love interest usually either dies right away or has really or just has nothing happen to him. Like, if he lives, he doesn't really get hurt that bad. But if he dies, he either dies or gets the shit kicked out of him. And here, he gets the shit kicked out of him pretty bad. Also, earlier in the film, we find out Ivan was kept in solitary confinement in, like, this hole down in the cellar, or the bottom floor that goes into the sewer. just one of the many, I guess, scatological moments of the film. But anyway, they try to get away. He's up on the roof. She's swerving. She hits a bunch of drums filled with gasoline. Ivan flies off. He's covered in gasoline. Russell comes back with a blowtorch. She kills Russell somehow. I don't remember. And she sets Ivan on fire. And that's how he dies. And then it ends with another dream where she's in the hospital and a burnt Ivan comes up to her saying, like, "You're just fine." And he rips his ear off and eats it. But then she wakes up and it kind of just fades away into gradual blurriness until, when she's just like right in front of David. They're kind of embracing in the hospital. And that's where it ends. Yeah, I mean, it's fun for what it is. It's definitely not one of my favorite slasher films. It's definitely not one of my favorite lower budget, kind of forgotten slasher films. But I can't say it's something different. It stands out for being, okay, it is part of like the prison horror genre. It is this larger than life, like football player or wrestler killer. It is more actiony. It does have more action and comedy in it. Which, the comedy is just some silly dialogue and situations, but it also has the self-referential, self-parody moments of within the Death House Dollies film within the film. Pacing was kind of an issue up until, I say, the third act. But, certainly Anthony Perkins was a huge plus to keep me going. To keep you hooked, but they definitely knew how to use their budget. For how low I could imagine this budget was, it still felt like it was money well spent. And yet, I'm just not sure what else to say about it. I mean, it wasn't really anything that really grabbed my attention or stood out as great. I mean, the only thing I could say I actually loved was seeing Anthony Perkins. But, and I guess it's somewhat unique kind of setting and killer. Even though I can see why people might either confuse it or lump it together with Shocker. I do think they did a good job with the look at the prison. The prison does look good. It does have some very 80s kind of set design. Like, if a gate opens, there's a lot of, like, blue lights with fog and someone, like, standing in it. So, kind of 80s action film look to it. But yeah, did love it. Didn't hate it. It wasn't really that good, but wasn't really that bad either. Just kind of, I mean, almost a half hour to just say, I'm kind of in the middle. But it was certainly more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, that's 1988's Destroyer. I do have some other newer films that I picked up. Like, newer as in new that I bought them, not that they came out recently. But I have been looking for more 80s slasher films that I haven't reviewed yet. I picked up most of the go-to ones, so now they're getting kind of harder to find. I came across this one by luck, but I'm always on the hunt for more 80s slashers. But yeah, for you more action fans, probably check out Destroyer. If you're more like Friday the 13th, or even not like that, just more standalone ones. Like, if you're more My Bloody Valentine, or The Prowler, or Pieces, or, something like that, or something like April Fool's Day or Mortuary, it might not appeal to you as much. It is kind of the perfect blend of like action and slasher with a bunch of comedy throughout. So yeah, that's 1988's Destroyer. Thank you for watching.